How many jobs have you turned down because they were outside your geography, your niche, or simply because you were already at capacity? What if you didn't have to walk away from any of them? I'm Mark Whitby, and you're listening to the Resilient Recruiter podcast. Today is a special sponsored episode, a panel interview with 3 members of NPA Worldwide, a global network of independent recruiters built around split fee placements.
At first, I was going to go on the intake call all by myself. What am I going to ask? Am I going to sound like an expert? But I just immediately turned around and called our trading partner. At the end of a 45-minute call, we spoke and he's like, "Jeff, I got the guy." I'm like, "Really?" "I got the guy." Guess what? That's who they hired.
My panelists are Heather Gardner, Jenn Anderson, and Jeff McGraw.
I wanted him to be on the call to ask, like Jeff said, questions that I probably wouldn't have thought of. And so he helped me land the client. And the other big piece about this was we were talking about the contract, putting it together. And he's like, "Well, what are you going to put as the fee?" I'm like, 25%. That's usually what I always charge. He goes, "Put 30. Okay. And they never blinked an eye. If I had not worked that job, had not been in NPA, had not had that business partner, I never would have had that opportunity.
Heather made 6 splits in her first year with NPA. Jenn has made over 55 in the last decade. And Jeff has been doing split placements since 1994.
I don't have that many clients. So when I have a little bit of downtime, I can go in the system, see jobs and be like, "Oh, here's an IT role that is very similar to things that I've worked on in the past. Maybe just a different location." I can work with them, get all the information.
In this episode, you'll hear why treating other recruiters as collaborators, not competitors, might be the best business development decision you make this year, and how split fees could help you make more money without more effort.
It's great in lean times, but it's even better in times where there's a lot of opportunity. The entire membership benefits because, when someone's up, someone's down, and we all bring each other up to a level that really helps support each other's individual businesses.
You can learn more about NPA at npaworldwide.com. All right. Jeff, Heather, and Jenn, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So just to give people a little context, I'm going to ask each of you just to give us the 60-second version of, your company, where you're based, what sort of people you recruit, and also your kind of experience with NPA Worldwide. Heather, would you get us started?
My name's Heather Gardner. I'm over in California. My staffing agency is High Sierra Talent. I do mainly staffing in Sacramento Bay Area, but with NPA, I partner all over the country. A lot of my work right now is in Texas. My company has been around since January of last year, so relatively new. I've been in the staffing agency for about 9 years now. So relatively new to NPA. I've been in for a year this round.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Heather. Jeff?
Hey, good day. Good to see you, Mark. So I'm Jeff McGraw with William Charles Search Group. I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our other partners are in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So we're 11 people at this stage of the game, 25 years in business. Our primary market that we target are middle market companies in manufacturing and distribution. We do work at the executive C-level and then a few steps below that, but typically all leadership positions. I joined NPA in, 1994, so it's been quite some time. And I did join as a solo entrepreneur at that time, but my journey has brought me to join up with another NPA firm, which we can get into at some point if you're interested, which I joined up with William Charles in 2.5 years ago.
All right. That's awesome. And Jenn, how about you?
Hey, Mark. Nice to meet you. Jenn Anderson down in Clearwater, Florida. My firm is called Prestige Recruiting Firm. I've been in the recruiting industry for 15 years. I've owned my company for 10. I've been part of NPA for 10 years, and I currently serve on the board for the Americas on the East Coast. I do pretty much everything in recruiting except for IT and finance. I have clients from a university all the way down to a med device manufacturing company to landscape irrigation commercial work. So I do everything. I get clients by referrals, and I just do anything but the IT and finance. And I think, and I do everything global. So I started in NPA as a candidate recruiter by myself, of course, and then I flipped the switch immediately. My clients just ramped up, and I've always been on the job side now, and love working with everybody there. It's been a
All right.
great adventure.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into that. We were chatting, well, just while we were waiting to get started here, and I was sharing that I've been to the Tampa, St. Pete area twice. We've had events there. Love that area.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely beautiful. So you're very fortunate to live so close to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
We live near the beach here in Scotland, but it is much colder. So you need a wetsuit to go in. You guys, unfortunately, it sounds like you're not going to make it to Dublin this year, but NPA have a conference coming up in June, which I've been honored to have been invited to speak at. What's the most recent one that you went to, and what do you get out of it?
I almost never miss the annual global conference. This past year, it was in San Antonio, Texas. It's so important to be face to face with our trading partners. That's where we build the trust and the camaraderie, and it forges the opportunity to work closely with our partners. So never miss one if you can.
Yep. You meet people there, and then you end up not necessarily thinking you're going to work with them. You're like, oh, you're a new member, or I haven't met you yet. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I really like that person. And then later on you start talking and you have a job. Like Jeff, I didn't know Jeff until I met him in person, and we worked together several years ago, but I wouldn't have done that had I not met him in person.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. The relationships really are forged in person, aren't they? It's so much easier than just doing it virtually. Do any of you guys know Teresa Nordstrom?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Know her well.
She is a bundle of energy, isn't she?
Yes,
She's so Teresa's one of our clients, but I know that she is a huge believer in NPA and does a lot of splits with you guys.
She does.
We should probably just I think most recruiters know the concept of a split fee, but they may never have really participated in that type of arrangement. So maybe can I ask one of you just to explain how it actually works?
So, our network is based off of ethics, morals. We have bylaws. We have an operations manual. So everybody has to abide by the rules per se, and you also are protected in a split network like this. So, if something happens and a partner goes awry, you have NPA's backed operations and bylaws that we've all signed. We have to take, it's kind of like a grand poobah group. You have to be vetted to join our network because we're member owned. The members have a say in how things are run. We have a board that represents the members and keeps the entire membership in their mind when we're making decisions, not just, it's global. So we have global board of directors, and people work internationally together. So I would say that was the biggest appeal for me to join a network like this, because I don't know these people when you first start, and you're protected, and you're like, okay, everyone has to abide by the same bylaws and rules. So if they don't, then I have protection with the network as an organization. If something were to happen, there would be, somewhat consequences, or I would be protected as a member. But the split part of it is, you understand what the fees are when you're talking to your partner, what their job is. You understand what their guarantee period is before you work a job. What else am I missing? And then the network itself is run by, the membership fees and a small portion of the amount of split fee that is made. So we each pay a 2.5% fee to the broker, to the network, just because that's part of what our rules and bylaws are to be part of the network. Am I missing anything, Jeff?
Well, two things. One, I just wanted to reiterate one of the important things that you said, Jen, is that we are a member-owned cooperative. And so decisions are made based upon what's in the best interest of our owners. and it's not a for-profit entity owned by some corporation or by just one individual. So that's pretty key and important. But to answer the question about the split fees, so our typical split is 50-50. We share the fee equally with the 2.5% coming out from each side of the split. The other thing to mention is that in addition to direct hire split, we also have the opportunity to work on contract or interim split placement opportunities as well.
Fantastic. All right. And Heather, I guess you're the newest NPA member. What's been your experience? I guess maybe ask you, what motivated you to participate?
So this is my second time in MPA. My first time I was MPA, I didn't make any splits, but I love the concept of it. When I joined this time, I had one connection I already knew that got me in a little early since my company was a little bit newer. But this time around, going to the MPA conference, complete life changer. Having those connections and knowing the people, it's different because there's an online website where people post the jobs and you can always just go in there and send random resumes over to the job. But that's not how you're going to make a placement, right? You're going to make a placement by having the relationships with Jenn, who has the job, right? So Jenn's not going to really want to work with me if she doesn't know who I am, right? You don't want to tell like all of your client information to this random person you've never met. But if you've met me, then you are like, oh, Heather's awesome. I want to work with her. And you're going to have this conversation. So this time around in MPA, I've already made 6 splits in 1 year. I have another offer on the table. Hopefully that one goes through. That one's going to be that is a lot bigger deal. But the one that's on the table right now, I wouldn't have worked with this salesperson if I hadn't met him in San Antonio. So NPA is amazing when you don't have enough orders yourself. So I don't have that many clients. So when I have a little bit of downtime, I can go in the system, see jobs and be like, oh, here's an IT role that is very similar to things that I've worked on in the past, maybe just a different location, and I can work with them, get all the information. NPA is just amazing.
Awesome. Heather, you hit on something which I think is like the first thing I wanted to ask you guys about is sort of the benefits of, split fees, but also why it matters more now. This is an old concept, right? Like it's been around for decades. I don't know I'd love to hear, first of all, how you're finding the market in general, but also then how you feel like having the option to do splits enhances your business. So because I'm connected to thousands of recruiters through the podcast, and in our coaching program, we have working at any time with, say, 50 different businesses, then I have a real sense of what's going on in the market. And I would say, not universally, but many recruiters have told me that the market's been tough in the last couple of years. What are you guys seeing? And then how does NPA sort of help you to enhance your business?
Good questions. I would say that from our perspective, the last few years, we've been lucky, I guess, in terms of the clients that we target. So middle market, manufacturing, distribution companies that are family owned or part of a family office, at least in our geographies that we work as well, the business has been pretty robust and
awesome.
A good steady stream of opportunities. But where NPA has really come in to assist is when we have a client in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who has a facility in Mexico that needs to hire a CFO. We're sitting in Michigan or Pennsylvania and don't really know the cross-border culture, where to go, how to find someone. We connect with our trading partner member in Mexico, and because again of the trust relationship that we've built with our partners, that person just runs with it. They know the company, the hiring authorities. They know the detail that we know as if it was their client. And we made the split and they made the hire. And we can talk about multiple situations like that that just occur. So it's great in lean times, but it's even better in times where there's a lot of opportunity. And that's where the entire membership benefits, because it's, when someone's up, someone's down, and but we all bring each other up to a level that really helps support each other's individual businesses.
Makes sense, I guess. And that's additional revenue you wouldn't have otherwise had, right, Jeff? You would have just had to walk away from that opportunity. So it makes total sense whether you have jobs or opportunities that you're not best placed to be able to cover, or you are light on jobs. In either case, you've got more opportunities to increase revenue. That all makes a lot of sense. What misconceptions do you think recruiters have about split partnerships, Jen?
I think people have a hard time trusting other people with information most of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But for me personally, I'm protected by NPA. So if I have a partner that I don't know that wants to work my job and I have a good conversation with them, I don't care about sharing my client. I don't care about telling them who the hiring managers are to look them up so they have an idea of who I'm working with. I personally blind copy them in all my correspondence with the client, with the candidate, because I want them to know what's happening, because recruiters want information all the time.
Right.
I want feedback. I want to know what's going on, what's happening with this. So when I work with someone, I just copy them on everything. So I don't have to have a second email, a second whatever. And I trust them to know that they're not going to go after my client. They're not going to contact someone there. I learned that personally from another NPA member when I started. They did that to me as a candidate recruiter. And I valued that information so much that I was like, I'm totally doing that with anyone that works with me, because they understand that I value what they're doing for me on my positions, and I want them to continue to be informed about it. So I think the misconception is you don't trust people you don't know, but personally, I feel very confident and protected because I'm in a network like this, that other partners may have worked with them. I can get, background information. Have you worked with this person? There's lots of people to talk to about it. So I think that to me is probably the misconception, is you don't really know someone. You don't want to really share the information. Are they a good recruiter? I want to give everybody a chance.
I love it. So question coming to you, Heather, is I think what Jen just shared would be I'm trying to imagine myself in the recruitment business owner's shoes. Is I feel like I would be worried about the loss of control, right? Because recruiters like to have control. And if you have both sides of the deal, then you know everything that's going on, all the things that could go wrong. You know what, you can read between the lines with the candidate, what they're telling you, what they're not telling you, and likewise with the client. Now, in this scenario, you have to really collaborate with someone in order to have the full picture. Heather, you've done 6 splits already this year, which is fantastic. How have you overcome that issue of, what you know, but you don't necessarily, either you have access to all the candidate information, but not the client, or vice versa? How do you kind of make that work?
You partner, yes. So my company, it's just me. But when I partner with another NPA person, it's like we're on the same company. When I'm talking to the candidates, if I'm working one of Jen's roles, I'll tell them, my partner Jenn, though you'll notice 2 different companies, we're essentially, think of us as the same company. You don't have to worry about it. Both of us will be in contact with you. And then Jenn and I will have conversations on the side if we need to. I wish every partner would do the blind CC, but most people don't. So they'll just send you an email, send you a text, say, hey, submitted them, or called them. They're great. But you're always in contact. If you don't have that contact, I'm probably not going to work with that partner. But almost every single person that I've worked with in MPA, if I have someone going through the interview process, I'm getting an email every single step of the way. We're having conversations. If there's an offer on the table, we're having multiple conversations so that we both have all of the information. That way I can relay it to the candidate, they can relay it to the client. You just partner as if you are in the same company.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that when she just talked about how the collaboration of work, everybody likes to work differently. So there's not like a standard rule here that you have to do a certain thing a certain way. Everybody's different. And so you kind of learn what the ways are to work with someone. So some client recruiters in our organization want full control. So if someone hands me a candidate personally, I don't necessarily want that candidate recruiter talking to them all the time because I need to be the face because my client knows me, not Heather. But I always keep Heather, informed. So if I ever needed her to step in to help out with something with communication, or I can't talk to the candidate about something, that's when I would want that partner to still obviously be involved. But some other partners will say, hey, I need you to follow this candidate through the entire process, interview, make sure they're going to show up. Like everybody works very differently. So you have to make sure that you want to work like that with those people.
That makes total sense. Jeff, do you have any other, from your experience with MPA, any other tips on the do's and don'ts of having a successful collaboration?
So I wanted to just circle back perhaps to the idea of less control or more control.
Yeah.
And what kind of came to mind for me was immediately that it's kind of like the 1 + 1 does equal 2. And so in a lot of circumstances, when you have two, there's more control. And especially when you bring in a partner that may be helping you on a search, on an assignment that falls a little bit outside of what you do normally, right? And so you're bringing more firepower to the table. And a real life example that again came to my mind was I had a client who randomly called me and they needed to hire an optics engineer. And I'm like, okay, great. And at first I was going to go on the intake call all by myself and worry about, well, what am I going to ask? Am I going to sound like an expert? And what do I need to know? But I just immediately turned around and called our trading partner. I'll shout out for Howard. And he came on the intake call with us together. At the end of a 45-minute call, we spoke and he's like, Jeff, I got the guy. I'm like, really? I got the guy. Guess what? That's who they hired. So again, there is more control whenever you come in with more firepower, in my opinion. So,
Okay. So it's interesting that you actually brought Howard onto the intake call. So that's a great tip. I guess it sounds like, back to what Heather was saying, if you imagine that for the sake of this placement, at least, that you are on the same team, it's no different to being part of a larger company where they have a split desk and there's a salesperson and a recruiter, right? You just need to make sure that that communication is excellent with both parties. I'm curious, do you guys track how much extra revenue you've made through your split fees, and like what does that add up to over the years you've been involved?
Gosh, I couldn't even tell you. I looked at my splits. I think I'm over 55 in the last 10 years with just NPA.
Okay.
Not, so, and I am also by myself. But I've never kept track of what it is. I'm just like, thank God I have that member to help me with that job because I wouldn't have filled it myself.
And so is that 55? So over 10 years, so 5 or 6 a year? Is that kind of normal? Or?
I would say so. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's some jobs that you get, me personally, with clients, and I'm like, I've done this job before for them. I know exactly what they need. I can do this myself. So MPA is there for the jobs I don't have time for, or like Jeff was just saying, a position that, like, I say I don't do finance, but if I have a client of mine that needs a finance person, I have finance partners to go to. I've had clients come to me and like, hey, we need to find a sales leader in Asia. I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been with NPA and met people, like he just said, brought him on the intake call. He talked about the culture. It's just, NPA is honestly invaluable. It just sometimes when you think you don't need something, you're like, wow, I actually am so glad I'm part of this network because someone actually helped me that I probably wouldn't have had if I was on my own.
That's cool. Jeff, how about you? How many deals per year would you say that you've done through split fees?
So that's a great question, and it's obviously changed over the years just based upon the structure of the business and things like that. But I would say on average, we're at between 4 and 5
Okay.
splits as well.
That's awesome. I just thought of something else. I'm going to throw, being devil's advocate here, throw another concern at you guys. We've talked about control, and it's kind of on that theme again. If I'm the recruiter, how do I know how real this job is? For example, you might have someone with a job which is fully retained, where they know that they're going to fill that job and they're exclusively working with that client. But you might have another recruiting firm that it's a contingent role and they really don't have as much of a handle on that client as you would like, which obviously is a higher risk. How do you kind of assess which jobs you want to actually collaborate on?
It's a good question for Heather.
Heather?
So when I first got in NPA, I reached out to one of the top recruiters. He was in a different field. I think he did mainly accounting, but I reached out to him with this exact question because I had worked a couple roles and it didn't go anywhere. So I was like, how do you do it? And the main advice is to have a conversation on the phone with the salesperson, right? And ask them directly, how long have they been your client? If they say 5 years, how many placements have you done? If they say, oh, this is my first position with them, you know, every time you get a new client, there's bumps in the way, right? You don't know how fast the feedback is. So that's just the risk that you're taking on if they say, oh, this is my first client. And then you can ask, how long has the role been open? Have you submitted anyone? And normally with all of this information, you have more information to decide if you actually even want to work it. There are times when I'll have conversations and they'll say, oh, this role has been open for 3 months. There's 5 other agencies on it. And you kind of have to wait. If you have nothing to work, then work it. But if you have other roles that are hot, that with other partners, then you work on those, right? So you don't work on every single thing that's out there. You get to choose too. And with having these relationships with people, you'll also learn partners that have the good relationships with their clients. And then you'll also learn that you want to partner with them. So there is a learning curve to it. A lot of times when you join NPA, they say in the first year you may only make 1 placement, and it's because you're learning all your partners, learning how to gauge all the roles and how to just work with all these new people that you're partnering with.
Makes total sense. I guess it's common, like you would qualify the opportunity just as you would if you were directly working with the client, I suppose. Jeff, you had something to add?
I was just going to add that I always say that you should treat your NPA partner as if they are your best client.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, especially if you're going to be doing, multiple placements with them over time, then right. That's a great way of looking at it. I would love if you guys wouldn't mind sharing a success story of a placement that you made through collaborating with an NPA trading partner that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and what was either interesting or unique about that particular one.
Yeah. So for us, we had an opportunity a few years ago with a large global trade association in the manufacturing space came to us, and they were rebuilding out their team in different departments. And during our intake call, we talked about opportunities outside of North America, and there were positions in London and the UK. And I'm like, great, we can help you with that. So I reached out to Tim Lane at Park Lane, and he took the ball, ran with it, and we ended up making 2 split placements that we would not have made but for our relationship with Tim, because I sat on the board of directors with him, and we would be side by side. We got to know each other, trust each other, and whatnot. So that's my success story. And it was fun to be able to say that we've done a global or non-North American international placement or two. So
Yeah, that's cool. Heather, what are you thinking of, like a recent placement that you were excited about?
I would say a recent placement that I had. I partnered with a firm out in Texas. This role was open for 3 months. It was I've done a lot of contract
Well, that's
splits
cool.
inside the MPA. Only one permanent, 5 contract with an offer for permanent right now. But this
Fingers crossed
contract
for you.
order, thank you. Fingers crossed for him as well. But this role had been open for 3 months. The hiring manager kept going back and forth on what they wanted. It was an IT asset manager. And when there's multiple hiring managers involved that have different ideas of what they want, you can go back and forth, find perfect fits, and then one of the hiring manager says no, and the other ones it was a perfect fit. So finding those and working 3 months with this NPA partner, trying to recalibrate all of the requirements, finally making the placement. All of our placements with NPA, we wouldn't have been able to make those, right? I mean, I had 6 deals on the books that I wouldn't have had in my first year if I wasn't a part of NPA.
Heather, thanks for sharing. I didn't realize that it worked for contract opportunities as well. How does that work? Is it still like, do you share the ongoing revenue or?
Yeah. So you share the ongoing revenue for however long the contract is.
Yeah.
You just split it 50-50, or there's 2 different ways you can split it. Sometimes we'll do like a 60-30 because the company that is taking on the contractor is taking on the liability, having to do time cards and all of the work that's associated with it. So it kind of depends on the position and your relationship with your MPA partner. But it's the same as it would. But once they pay, then they pay you out every month or every 2 weeks. You get a paycheck from your NPA partner for the contract orders.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Having like recurring revenue. That's cool. I didn't realize that you guys did that as well. Jenn, what about you? What's maybe the most surprising split fee that you were involved with?
I have several.
Okay.
I mean, I will say that when I joined, I felt like a baby around people like Jeff, who had been around for so long, and listening to all the success stories and what an MPA could do for them. And everyone talks about doing a global split. And I'm like, I'm never going to do that. I'm just not even in my mind. That's never going to happen. And I had 2 different clients in the same year ask me for help. Jenn, can you do, I think it was a Latin American salesperson. And I was like, yes, I can, because I knew exactly who I was going to call. And then the other one, as I mentioned earlier, was in Asia. And I had a guy that lived in China, but actually lived in New York, and he helped me out with that. But I think one of my biggest ones really that I always felt like was such a great NPA collaboration one was I got a random phone call from a university a couple years ago from an HR person. And she's like, hey, I got your name from, I don't even know who. And she said, I have like these 4 roles with our university. It's a really tiny little university in Miami. And, would this be something you could help me with? And I had worked higher ed with another MPA partner years prior, one of the first people I ever met, and knew it, but not as well as he did. So I asked her, I'm like, hey, can I call you back with a business partner who I work with? And I wanted him to be on the call to ask, like Jeff said, questions that I probably wouldn't have thought of. And he did. And so he helped me land the client. And the other big piece about this was, I'm like, okay, we were talking about the contract, putting it together. And he's like, well, what are you going to put as the fee? I'm like, 25%. That's usually what I always charge. He goes, put 30. I was like, okay. and they never blinked an eye. So
That's awesome.
I got 4 roles from them, and I gave him the highest paid role to fill because I was like, you help me land this client, go after that person. And, you'll get the higher, fee amount, whatever. So I think that was my biggest win. And that client is still with me. They call me once a year and she always says, okay, Jen, I have a Santa Claus list for you to find this person. So I think if I had not worked that job, had not been an NPA, had not had that business partner, I never would have had that opportunity.
Love that. What's the sort of biggest deal that you guys have done through split fee?
I think mine was like 285, as in that was the salary.
Fantastic.
So that was one of my bigger ones in NPA.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff?
I'm going to go a little bit different and not so much say the biggest fee from a revenue perspective,
Okay.
but the biggest split of importance to me and my business was the very first one when I went out on my own. And as we all know, right, the revenue stream needs to come in. And it was a director of marketing position for a small community bank. And I remember the joy. This is back in the day when we actually cut checks, right? Paper checks. And I had that check with me en route to one of our regional meetings in, I think, Columbus, Ohio. And I delivered the check to our trading partner. And it was just for me, that was the biggest placement. And maybe not so much from a revenue perspective, but from I'm still here today doing what we do perspective.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, great story. Would love to think more about the mindset because something that I really value is community, and it's something that I'm building within my coaching business is bringing recruiters and business owners together, sharing ideas, best practices, strategies, and supporting each other. But not all recruiters think that way, right? And I think one hurdle to get over if someone was going to participate in something like this is making that mindset shift from seeing other recruiters as competitors to collaborators. What allowed you guys to kind of make that shift yourself? Because I know when I started in 1997 in the recruiting industry, and it was always seen as very competitive, very cutthroat, and like other agencies were kind of like you didn't obviously want them to steal your clients, so you were very guarded about what you told them. Jeff, did you want to respond to that?
I do. So we all know recruiters in our local market, perhaps, that are not part of NPA. And you'll randomly see them on the street or a networking event. And it's kind of like the question, how was your day? And everyone says, my day is great.
Right.
So you ask a competitor in your local market, how's business? Business is great.
It's great.
Could never be better, right? And we all know that isn't always the truth. On the opposite side, I'll call Jen, I'll call Heather or anyone else. How's business? Oh, man.
Yep.
Business is really rough right now. I've only made one placement. We're 3 months into the year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've had this struggle. I've had that struggle. And so the honesty and the transparency and the truth is so refreshing. And it can be the opposite as well. It could be business is great. Sorry, Jen, not for you. Let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. How can we help each other?
Mm-hmm.
And talk about community as a group, as a network. We are so quick to respond to the changes in the environment, whether it be back in COVID, when everything shut down. We were immediate to pull groups together and have the Zoom calls to talk about whether it was the EDL loan or whatever it was called at that time, and how we need to get out in front of it. So it was things that were not just about making split placements. It's about survival. It's about what's happening in our business. A real life example today is coming out of the San Antonio meeting. Jen, you were on the call with Phil, and we now have a practice group, if you call it that, an AI practice group. So we immediately got together. we're attacking this idea of AI and how it's going to fit into our businesses. And we're talking about best practices that we're sharing with each other, because again, we're in this together. So I'm pretty passionate about the splits. That's why we're here. But this other component, oftentimes we don't talk about. So
nice. Anything else you wanted to add, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, so looking at like the competitive, I mean, if you ever play sports and it's a team event, or even if it's an individual event with a team component, there's always you want to do well for yourself, but having the kind nature, which I think a lot of people have in MPA, you want everyone to succeed, right? So as Jeff was talking about the AI best practices meeting that we had, it's sharing your tips of how am I using AI to recruit better? I want everyone in the organization to recruit better. I mean, it kind of creates more competition for me, but at the same time, it's just helping people. Even when I worked at a large staffing agency, you had your office that you worked with and you wanted everyone to succeed and do well. And yes, there's a little competition about who's going to reach out to the correct person the fastest. But at the same time, you weren't trying to, I mean, I don't. And I think that's why we're all in MPA. You don't try to steal candidates or clients. That's not what we're about, right? We want to work together. We're real people, and we all want to succeed and have a great life, right? That's why we got into this business, is to be able to have the life that you want. And a lot of people in MPA get in because, I mean, I'm one of the younger ones in MPA, and I didn't like the competition and the push that all the agencies do of butts and seats, butts and seats, butts and seats. I mean, I want to make fills where people are really excited to have the job offer and to be going to this client. It's not, oh, I have to make 10 subs and I have to do 100 phone calls in a day. Like, it's finding the balance of life, right? And that, I mean, for me, I started my company. I have a toddler at home. I work only about 5 hours a day so that I can spend more time with him. And you can't do that without having your own company, right? And I don't have someone breathing down my shoulder saying, you're not working your 8 hours, right? I mean, not like every boss does that, but some do. And then I can be open with Jenn. And if I'm working her role and my son is homesick, I'll be like, hey, Jenn, I'm not going to be actively working your role for the next couple days because my son's homesick and I have to be there. I kind of went on a roundabout.
No, I love that. That's great because look, that's what this is all about, is like, what does success mean to you, and how do you want to structure your business and your life, and in a way that works for you and your family? And then how does being part of something like this facilitate that? So I think you did a great job of explaining that. How old is your little one?
He'll be turning 3 in the summer.
Wow. You know, they say terrible twos, but I thought 3 was harder, if anything, than 2. Mine are all teenagers and young adults now. So, but I still remember.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, 3. Well, they're all different though. That's the thing, right? You can't generalize from one kid to another. Jenn, what about for you? Like, how do you feel about this? You've obviously been with, I think you said 10 years with MPA. What's your mindset around collaboration and, how that's impacted your business?
Yeah, I mean, being a solopreneur, not having, you feel like you're on an island by yourself a lot. But when you're part of a group and you've over time gotten to know people enough to where they're actually really strong friendships that you will have outside of MPA, it's so important. And here again, I said, I never thought I would do a global split in NPA. Things that have happened within this organization for me, I've never thought. Like, we have a leaderboard every year, like top 25. In the first conference I went to, I'm like, I'm so going to be on that next year, like competitive wise, like, and
Great.
yeah. So there's little things like that. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you made it to top 5. Like, that's good collaboration. It fuels the fire within you to do well and to succeed, but also like, hey, I have a friend that's trying to help me. Like, you start calling each other like, hey, I know you've worked this job before for me. Can you help me with that? But for me, MPA is just even volunteering within the organization itself. Put your name out there. People get to know who you are more. More people are calling you. So, as soon as I was able to do certain things like that, Heather, you need to be in a volunteer role soon. It just puts you out there and you get to know people more, and it makes you more successful because people want to work with you because they've met you. They see that you're successful or you're volunteering and you're helping. Like, there's so many different avenues of the collaboration with NPA that can be done, not just making splits.
Fantastic. You actually raised a point. What do you think makes someone a great partner?
When I get a phone call from someone I don't know and they're genuinely like, hey, I'm new. I saw this position. I've done stuff like that before. Would you be interested in me helping? And I ask them like, well, what kind of jobs have you worked before? So someone that has an understanding of what the job is per se, or the industry, is very important, I think. It's tough to try to help someone, like, feel like you're helping them get a start in MPA if they haven't worked a certain industry or position. So I think it's important for someone to communicate well about what their knowledge is, and then you communicate all the information about the position, the company, whatever, and then sometimes, you may not hear from them, but I always say, I give them an action item like, hey, in a couple of days, get back to me and let me know how the search is going. What are you finding? What are you not finding? What are your stumble blocks? Like, maybe I can help you. Give them some profiles that you've placed before so they can feed off of that. So I think that to me is a good partner that communicates well, lets you know what's going on, asks questions, and or vice versa for like a candidate recruiter. You're a job recruiter letting people know that are working on your roles, like, hey, I got this candidate from this person, just so you know. Like, the communication is, we say this all the time. I think it's like constantly beating a dead horse. we always are like, communication is like
Right.
the biggest piece for a successful partnership.
That makes sense. Do you guys agree with that or disagree? Anything you would add, Jeff?
I would agree with everything that Jenn said. And again, it goes back to the philosophy of treating your trading partner as if it was your best client.
Mm-hmm.
And so think to yourself, how would I handle this if this was my direct client?
Right.
And it's the communication, it's the follow-up, it's the understanding of what each other wants in the relationship. If it's a position where just send me resumes, I'll do the screening, or if it's I need you to have a direct relationship with the individual and provide me with the information that is complete and concise. So it's, again, just goes back to how would you treat this if it was your client directly?
How do you resolve issues? For example, like, we all work a little differently, right? Or a lot differently, and may have different processes, different standards, different, views about how you like to work. So how do you iron those out if you're working with someone who's like, obviously, if they worked for you in your business, you could just be directive and say, this is how we present a candidate. This is how we interview a candidate. This is how we whatever. But obviously, they don't work for you. You're partnering with them. So how do you resolve those sorts of issues?
Upfront conversation.
Right.
How do you work? What do you like? How do you like this? How do you like that? How do you like a candidate write-up? You got to ask all those questions up front.
Right. And you end up meeting somewhere in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, upfront contract, upfront conversation. The communication is key. And just, again, respecting, accepting, and understanding that we all work different. And at the end of the day, what's going to get us to a successful placement that's right and best for the candidate and for the client.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. By the way, I'm just throwing these questions out because I'm really curious and want to understand how this all works. One of the key things that we teach is that the importance of being a specialist and being an expert in your domain. How do you guys decide what to work yourself and what to partner with someone else on?
I think that might be more of a question for Jeff and Jen, since I'm not as much on the client side. I mean, for me, if it's a contract order, because I do a lot of contract, I put it in right away. I will still work it, but my mindset for contract, it moves very quickly. So I want to get the fill and I don't want another agency to get the fill. So I'd rather do a split with MPA than have no fee or no placement at all. So I open it up. I will still work it. But it will be just whoever's candidate gets the job.
Let me ask you about that then, because if you're competing with your partner, doesn't that isn't that a conflict?
I mean, but that's how it is always. I think a lot of times, I mean, you're not the only one working the job when you're an MPA. If I'm working Jen's role, there's a chance that there's 5 other MPA partners also working it. It's just there's so many candidates out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some times when there's niche. Everyone has different Boolean searches that they're plugging in. Everyone comes across different candidates. Sometimes you'll come across the same candidate and it's whoever reached out to them first. So in that, there's speed. I'm guessing if it's a full-time opportunity and that I got, I would work on it for 2 weeks and then open it up maybe so that I gave myself proper time. But just having the open communication with the MPA partners. One of the questions I always ask is, how many MPA partners are you partnering with? And are there other agencies also working on the job? So you get the clear picture. So when you get on the phone with someone, I mean, a lot of times when you're talking to a candidate, you'll be like, how many other opportunities are you actively interviewing with, right? And then once you go through vetting all of the technical stuff, sometimes they'll be like, well, this is in the same location as a different company that I'm interviewing for. I will ask, well, what company are you interviewing for? And then I can be like, oh, it's the same company or it's not. But a lot of times at the end of the conversation where it's like, you're a great fit for this position, I think I want to submit you over to the client. The client is X, Y, and Z. And have you talked to anyone else about this position? But most of the time, if you send them a message and you tell them where it is in the job title, they will tell you, hey, I'm already talking to someone about this position. I was working with an MPA partner and there were 3 other MPA partners working on it. And there was 2, me and one of the other MPA partners recruiting on it, reached out to the same person, and that MPA partner reached out to me. They're like, you got this I'm not going to say his name. Let's just say, call him George. You reached out to George. He looks great. Good job. Mm-hmm. And he was already interviewing. So it's just, it comes down to, we all want everyone to succeed in here.
So again, I guess it's thinking of yourself as, if you're working for a larger company, it'd be a similar sort of competition. But Jen and Jeff, then thinking from if you own the client relationship, and how do you decide what to keep yourself and what to partner with someone else on?
Again, it depends on a number of factors. So geography is obviously one of them. So we spoke earlier about the split we did in Mexico, the 2 splits that we did in the UK. So that's one factor. The other would be the specialty or the niche. We spoke about that. So an optics engineer, that's just way out of my understanding. And we have 2 people, at least that I know of directly, that's all they do. They live, eat, and breathe people in the optics industry. Yeah. So it really depends upon those factors in our case. The other would be just from a volume perspective. So
Yeah.
if we're overwhelmed with opportunities and we know that we can partner with a specific person, then we'll do that. And it's, long time ago, and I promised myself I wasn't going to use this phrase, but an old boss taught or used to say the phrase, don't be like a dog with a bone. So
Yeah.
if you think about that dog, right, that's just like holding the bone, like stay away, and I don't want you to take what I have.
Mhm.
You can't approach being a part of NPA like that. You need to be open and inclusive and work within the group to the best advantage, and even like Heather said, of all of us, because as we all do well or individually do well, we all do well together as well. So
100%. That
Yep.
makes sense to me. Guys, is there anything we haven't discussed today that you wanted to make sure that the audience understands about NPA and or, how to succeed with split fees?
I love that question, Mark. And I use that every time I end a conversation with a client or a candidate.
Right. I like it too, because you don't know what you don't know, and I might have missed something. So,
right. And I guess I think you've done an excellent job in getting us to say the important things. And I just wanted to, reiterate and say that we exist as an organization, as a member-owned cooperative for split placements to assist us in growing our revenue and meeting our client needs. But beyond that, there is so much more. When we get together, and Jen and Heather, you can attest to this, it's like a family reunion when we meet at the annual global conference, or Mark, you'll see in Dublin when you're there next month, I think it is.
yeah.
And we're here to support each other, not just from a financial revenue split placement perspective, but from every other aspect that we talked about. It also gives your solo entrepreneur the opportunity to develop professionally. I know, Jen, you said yes when I called and said, would you consider being on the board of directors?
Right.
If you're all by yourself on an island and not part of a trade or an organization, you're not going to have those opportunities for professional development and
Right.
putting yourself out there to be on the board and exec committee and maybe someday chair of the board. You get the personal or professional recognition from the awards and being in the top 25. And there's just so much more to it. So I just wanted to reiterate the things that we already spoke about.
Yep.
Great answer.
Yep.
Jen, anything you want to add?
Exactly what he said is like, it's not just, we exist for split fees, but it's so much more than that, that you gain. And it does make me sad when people resign because they haven't actually embraced what the network is and can do for them. And when you talk to someone who is going to resign and you're like, well, what did you do in the network? Were you involved in calls? No, I didn't do that. No, I just really couldn't find people. I'm like, well, did you call this person? Did you talk? No, I didn't do that. I'm like, that's how you have to do things. Like, you can't hide behind your computer and type emails. You have to get on the phone. You have to get on a Zoom call with people. You have to get on those group calls so people know who you are and be engaged in the network. It's not going to work for you. You have to work in it.
Great. Fantastic. Well, really, really enjoyed that. We will include links in the show notes, but if you're listening, then it's npiworldwide.com. Heather, Jen, and Jeff, thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you, Mark. It was
Fun
great.
indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Heather, Jen, and Jeff. If you want to explore split fee placements for your business, check out www.npaworldwide.com. One last thing, if you're not yet subscribed to The Resilient Recruiter, please do that now so you never miss an episode. I sincerely appreciate it. Make it a great day, and I'll see you next time.